Good afternoon, everyone. Little volume, please. A little bit, all right. That's all right. Everybody can hear it? Once again, we'll start off with the title for those who want such things. Timing is everything. And for Yahweh, it is everything. As a result, if we are the people of Yahweh, it is best that we would make some serious effort to become aware of his timing and his ways. For the word of Yahweh tells us this about Yahweh's people. Anchoring down on John, the 10th chapter, the 22nd verse. One we have run into some confusion over the years, but clear some of that up today, as far as the Bible is concerned anyway. Then the Feast of Dedication took place in Jerusalem. It was winter, and Yeshua was walking in the temple in the portico of Solomon. It was the Feast of Dedication, 2 months after the last incidents, which occurred at and shortly after the Feast of Tabernacles. This Feast of Dedication occurred in December, was not divinely appointed, but was instituted by Judas Maccabeus in BC 164 to commemorate the purification of the temple after it had been defiled by the Syrians. Yeshua took the occasion to teach the people that came together at this festival. And continuing in verse 24. So the Jews surrounded him and began to say to him, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly." Yeshua answered them, "I told you, and you do not believe. The deeds that I do in the name of my Father, these testify about me. But you do not believe, because you are not of my sheep. My sheep listen to my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them eternal life, and they will never perish forever. And no one will seize them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one can seize them from the Father's hand. The Father and I are one." Then the Jews picked up stones again so that they could stone him. And he just disappeared. And they didn't say it there, but we've got it in some other places that happened. John, 10th chapter, the 3rd verse. John, the 10th chapter, 3rd verse. For this one, the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. Whenever he sends out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. And they will never follow a stranger, but will flee from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Yet in these turbulent times, there are definitely strange voices out here playing on our emotions and promising us a better life right now, under these awful conditions, under this pandemic and this strange election. And because they use the words of life to do it, some believe them and follow them, eventually becoming confused again, as they never truly seem to get better as promised in this fallen world. Timing again is everything. Timing is important in some things. Cooking, for instance. That juicy hamburger on the grill is just raw meat if it's cooked too little. If it is cooked too long, it becomes a charcoal briquette itself. And no one wants it. Again, timing is essential. When dealing with people, also, time is essential. You just don't want to ask for a raise right now in this pandemic. This might put you on the layoff list. There is one, whether you are told about it or not. Asking for a raise might get you there with a quickness that you don't believe. You don't ask a favor with someone while they're under a lot of stress or is angry. Might not get what you want. You might get a tirade that you don't want. Timing again is everything. As people of Yahweh, we must become acutely aware of His timing. It will make all the difference in the world. The world tends to want to follow Satan's schedule because it appears to allow more wiggle room. And it seems to give us what we want when we want it. Never mind the fact that most of what we want was suggested to us by the same world that is scamming us. But we aren't aware of that. The thing is, we're not aware of how much social engineering we have become under until someone reminds us. That's how stupid they've made us in some cases. Others of us aren't so much, because we still read this book. some of us still read this book. Even Eve wanted she and Adam to have power over the universe because Satan suggested they could. Yahweh Elohim had already given them absolute power in the Garden of Eden and the universe. In his time, he would eventually give them all of that. Notice, Genesis, the first chapter, the 26th verse. And he said, let us make man in our image and likeness, and let him have dominion over the fishes of the sea, and the fowls of the air, and the beasts, and the whole earth. It was already there for them. Give it time. Give it time. And the whole earth, and every creeping creature that moves on the earth. And Elohim created man in his own image. To the image of Elohim, he created them, male and female. Anything else there, folks? When you hear about other genders, ignore that for your own safety. Don't say it too loud either. Just say it to yourself and go on. And nowadays, in some municipalities, saying anything else can get you jailed. I say that not agreeing with it, but not to get in jail myself. And those who want to go to Canada, it's already happening up there. Preachers are getting ripped out of the pulpit for saying certain things that are in the Bible that haven't here yet, but yet. And Elohim blessed them, saying, increase and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and rule over the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the air and all living creatures that move upon the earth. Satan suggested to them that they could have it all. In time, they would have had it all anyway. That's what he does. Flummoxes your mind and tells you about things that in time you're going to get anyway. And he makes you think he's giving it to you. Satan suggested to them that they could have it all. Yet he spoke out of turn to Yahweh's people. Adam and Eve had not earned this level of power yet. This and even more power was in the plan for them when they earned it. However, when they chose to follow Satan, they lost it. And all because they went after the power that Yahweh had already set aside for them before they earned it. And were given it by Yahweh. Once again, timing is everything. Sarai wanted a child for Abraham, and Yahweh had this in mind for them. But Sarai didn't want to wait. Genesis, the 16th chapter, the first verse. Genesis, the 16th chapter, the first verse. Now Sarai, the wife of Abram, had borne him no children, and she had a female Egyptian servant, and her name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, "Look, please, Yahweh has prevented me," note that, prevented me from bearing children. "Please go in to my servant. Perhaps I will have children by her." What? There's two people there, two minds. Those minds want not go the way you want them to go after this thing is done. She knew that in the back of her mind anyway. What'd she say after that? Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. What else is a man gonna do? More stuff? Yeah. An agreement to go along with it? Then Sarai, the wife of Abram, took Hagar, her Egyptian servant, after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan. What? They were in the land of Canaan that long? Well, that's where she got that idea from. The Canaanites were the only people that ever God told anyone to charge interest on. He was trying to do what he told them to do, wipe them out. And she was being around these people all this time. That's probably where she got this idea from, those people. And notice what happened mentally. She gave her to Abram, her husband, as his wife. What was she? Really? But this is a Canaanite thing, obviously. And we all Canaanites in some ways, apparently. I don't know too many men that would have turned that offer down. I would, because I know what would happen. Verse 5. And Sarai said to Abram, getting ahead of myself here, may my harm be upon you. I had my servant sleep with you. And when she saw that she had conceived, she no longer respected me. You didn't expect that? A little bit? Somewhere? All the women are shaking their heads. All of them. Every one of them. May Yahweh judge between me and you. Here we have a hastily made decision that has had consequences to last to this very day. The Arab countries continue to fight and rail against the people who live in the land called Israel. And this event has had other consequences throughout time. Yahweh was all set to bless them with Isaac in his time. But Sarai doubted that she would have a child at all. Apparently, they had ticking clocks in Canaan also for the women. You got to do it pretty soon because the clock runs out and it's a risky pregnancy. Doubt is the problem. Doubt that she would have a child at all. Again, the move you made because of your doubt in Yahweh has made your life and all the lives around you go straight into the dumpster. Because of your doubting in the solid word of Yahweh. You threw a wrench in the plan by rushing it by your own devices. And then, what did she say? It's your fault. Once she saw the contempt in the eyes of the young girl toward her after having her child, she couldn't handle it and wanted to throw her out. Now notice two things. First of all, Hagar was an Egyptian. Let's go back to Genesis 16, verse 1. Now Sarai, the wife of Abram, had borne him no children, and she had a female Egyptian servant, and her name was Hagar. The slavery of this time was not the chattel slavery of the American South. The slaves here agreed to work for a person or a family for a time. One, they were paid. Two, housed. And three, fed. So when Sarai proposed this situation to Abram, the agreement had to be offered to Hagar as well. Her reaction should have had shut the whole thing down. How many of you ladies would have been offering your husband a young girl at that point? The word stupid mean anything to you? Anything at all? She kind of dense, ain't she? Little light. The slavery of this time, again, was not the chattel slavery of the American South. The slaves agreed to be paid, housed, and fed. So when Sarai proposed this situation to Abram, the agreement had to be offered to Hagar as well. She could have said no under the rules of this form of slavery, but when she didn't, that would have ended the whole thing for me. Everybody doesn't look at this thing the way I did, though. There obviously was a good relationship between them all up to this event. But this is how Satan works. He got to Adam through Eve. It is the policy and methodology of Satan to tempt us through our nearest and dearest relations, or those friends that we have a high opinion or an affection for. And Yahweh has to show us that we must rely on His word and rules more than we rely on our best friends. Was it a coincidence that the Hebrews were later enslaved by the Egyptians? Just think about it for a while. And I will say that coincidence and I don't get along well. I don't much believe in coincidences. Also, had not Sarai acted so hastily, would we be seeing the problems that we're seeing in the Middle East today? Man's impatience is the problem. We live in a world where everything is expected to happen instantly. Many take pride in how fast things can happen. Indeed, the most respected outward show of competence in the modern world is the speed with which things are done. The doctors brag of how fast they can perform surgeries in hospitals and send people home even faster and faster. They don't heal any faster, if at all. Anyone who takes herbal medicines knows that they work with the natural chemistry of the body, and they take longer to remedy. Most people, they too slow. That stuff don't work. I hear it all the time. And there will be some pain in the healing, but you will be healed in time. That's a word you don't hear often in medicine in this age. Healed. I had a joke there, but it's not appropriate. This is a word that is absent from the modern medical vocabulary. Healed. They manage diseases now. over a lifetime. And managed diseases can last, as I said, a lifetime. I've had high blood pressure since I was 16 years old. And the doctors haven't cured it yet, healed it yet. I'm getting closer to it. But their stuff is there. And with managed diseases, they can last a lifetime. All of a sudden, the word speed isn't all that important anymore. Management is a different animal altogether. Prescriptions are king in managed diseases. Yet the prescriptions offered by traditional medicine simply deaden the pain. Most are not designed to cure the problem. They simply deaden the pain. And the root problem gets worse over time. But the patient doesn't notice it. But the pain relief comes so much faster, which makes the patient think that he or she is getting better. But no one has noticed how fast we are hurtling toward the wall of history in medicine, politics, and every other area. Another little story I will add to this pile. After 40 years being raised in the home of Pharaoh Ramses II by his daughter, Moses had grown up as a prince in Egypt. He was well educated and well trained. I suspect he was also well respected. Moses knew he was a Hebrew, yet he could tell no one. He longed to be united with his own people. Frankly, we don't know whether Moses had any contact with his parents or the other Hebrews after he was turned over to Pharaoh's daughter as an infant to avoid his death by drowning, according to the edict of Pharaoh. This was another dumb move. And Yahweh proved that move as venal and dumb as they come. Exodus, the first chapter, the 17th verse. Exodus, the first chapter, the 17th verse. But the midwives feared Yahweh, and they did not do as the king of Egypt had said to them. They let the boys live. And the king of Egypt summoned the midwives, and he said to them, "Why have you done this thing and let the boys live?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, because they are vigorous before the midwife comes to them, they have already given birth. And Yahweh did the midwives good. And the Israelite people became many and were very numerous. And so because the midwives feared Yahweh, he gave them families. And Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, every son who is born, you will throw him into the Nile. And every daughter you will let live. Why? Why? Because men are naturally stronger. If you want to control a people, get control of their men or eliminate them. They do it differently now. And I won't go into that because you see it around you. And I don't want to offend anybody by pointing out the obvious. But the same thing is happening now, but a different way. The men are in jail for anything that they do, just about. Most of what they do is brought about by the governments themselves. And I won't say that either because that leads into something else that I want to talk about some other time. Not from this vantage. Yet, Yahweh's will was done inside Pharaoh's own home. That's the bottom line here. Exodus, the 2nd chapter, the 1st verse. And a man from the family of Levi went in. He took a descendant of Levi, and the woman conceived, and she gave birth to a son. And she saw him, and he was a fine baby. And she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she got a papyrus basket for him, and she coated it with tar and with pitch. And she placed the boy in it, and she placed it among the reeds on the bank of the Nile. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would have happened to him, what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh went down to wash at the Nile, while her maidservants were walking alongside the Nile. And she saw the basket in the midst of the reeds. And she sent her slave woman for it, and took it, and opened it, and saw him, the boy, and it was a lad, weeping. And she had compassion for him, and said, "This must be from the boys of the Hebrews." And his sister said to him, to the daughter of Pharaoh, "Shall I go and call for a woman from the Hebrews who is nursing, so that she will nurse the boy for you?" And the daughter of Pharaoh said to her, "Go." And the girl went, and she called the mother of the boy. And the daughter of Pharaoh said, Take this boy and nurse him for me, and I myself will give you wages. And the woman took the boy, and she nursed him. And the boy grew, and she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh. And he became her son, and she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out from the water. Moses did know that he was an Israelite. Our text doesn't tell us whether this incident in Exodus 2:11 was the first time Moses went out to where his own people were, or whether he had watched over them many times before. Many scholars believe he may have gone to oversee things many times. I suspect that each time he saw the Israelites working as slaves and being mistreated, it stoked the anger in him. I imagine Moses was deeply frustrated by his circumstances. Here he was in the lap of luxury, while watching his brothers treated like animals. This was chattel slavery, much like that of the American South. Now we go to Exodus, the 2nd chapter, the 11th verse. And then in those days, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his brothers, and he saw their forced labor. And he saw an Egyptian man striking a Hebrew man, and one of his brothers. And he turned here and there and saw no one. And he struck the Egyptian, and he hid him in the sand. And he went out to work the second day. And there were 2 Hebrew men fighting. And he said to the guilty one, "Why do you strike your neighbor?" He said, "Who appointed you as a commander and a judge over us?" Notice something that we didn't notice here because they didn't tell us. He was in full gear of the Egyptians when he said this. The question this man asked was the utmost in arrogance. Who made you a commander over us and a judge? He was in the uniform. That was a indication to God right then what kind of people he was dealing with from there on. And Moses too. And Moses was afraid. And he said, "Surely the matter has become known." And Pharaoh heard this matter, and he sought to kill Moses. And Moses fled from Pharaoh, and he lived in the land of Midian. And he lived at a certain well. Moses here intended to begin to familiarize himself with the Hebrews and perhaps initiate the beginnings of a rebellion. What? The wrong word. But he forgot that he was championing Hebrews while wearing the royal robes given him by living in the home of Pharaoh. The Hebrews had already told of his murder of the Egyptian in hopes of lightening their burdens and perhaps being rewarded somehow for this information. That's what slaves do. Anything that lifts their burdens a little bit, they'll do it. And some of them might have seen some familiarity in his face that betrayed that uniform he wore. But that's what happens when you are faced with a tough situation and you have done everything that you know to do according to the word of Yahweh. And that wasn't what happened here. But if we're thinking these are the things that you can do, but along with it, be cognizant of the things that do not work. If you find yourself using any of these techniques, you can be sure that you are jumping the gun. Number one, manipulation. To control or play upon people's or situations by unfair or insidious means, especially to your own advantage. If you are manipulating the situation, you are going at it at the wrong time, and it will not satisfy you in the end, even if you get what you wanted. Sarah, not you. Not you. Two, intimidation implies inducing or using fear or a sense of inferiority into another person through threats, insults, lies, or aggressive behavior. 3, deception, using sneaky tactics to dupe or fool someone in order to achieve your aims. This is Satan's trick. Telling a truth and lying about the purpose of it. Genesis, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse. Now, the serpent was more crafty than any other wild animal which Yahweh Elohim had made. He said to the woman, "Did Yahweh indeed say, 'You shall not eat from any tree in the garden'?" The woman said to the serpent, "From the fruit of the tree of the garden to the trees of the garden we may eat, but from the tree that is in the midst of the garden, Elohim said, 'You shall not eat from it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die.' But the serpent said to the woman, You shall not surely die. For Yahweh knows that on the day that you eat of it, then your eyes will be opened, and you both shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and the tree was desirable to make one wise, then she took it from it, and she ate. And she gave it also to her husband with her, and he ate. Four, guilt. Going back to my other three attributes of things that you shouldn't do. Guilt. To make someone feel responsible for a negative result because of their actions or inactions in a situation where you wanted them to act differently. 5, slander. To harm or defame the reputation of another by telling lies with the intent of damaging their reputation to get your way. This is the essence of the modern political campaign. This is why anyone who values their reputation at all never runs for office in these times. Once this became the totality of campaigning, the country began down the clockwise water circle, and it currently is in that circle. And anybody that looks at that circle and wonders what it is, go back there in that little room right there. We have one there. With that Archie Bunker talk, that the toilet. That's the turlet. Seeing that he had no backing, Moses had to run to Midian in order to escape Pharaoh, who now knew that he had killed an Egyptian slave guard. Yet after a time in Midian, Yahweh decided that Moses was now ready to free his people from Egypt. Exodus 3, the first verse. And Moses was a shepherd with the flocks of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the west of the desert, and he came to the mountain of Yahweh, to Horeb. And the angel of Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked, and there was the bush burning with fire, but the bush was not being consumed. And Moses said, "Let me turn aside and see this great sight. Why does this bush not burn up?" And Yahweh said, that he turned aside to see. And Yahweh called him from the midst of the bush. And he said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And he said, You must not come here. Take off your sandals from off your feet, because the place on which you are standing, it is holy ground. And he said, I am the Yahweh of your father, the Yahweh of Abraham, the Yahweh of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face because he was afraid of looking at the face of Yahweh. And Yahweh said, Surely I have seen the misery of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry of distress because of their oppressors. For I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up from this land to a good and wide land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. You don't have any good people in this land? And now, look, the cry of distress of the Israelites has come to me. And also, I see the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them. And now come, and I will send you to Pharaoh. And you must bring my people, the Israelites, out from Egypt. But Moses said to Yahweh, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? And he was thinking about that man he slayed. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? And that I should bring the Israelites out from Egypt? And he said, Because I am with you. And this will be the sign for you that I myself have sent you. When you bring the people out from Egypt, you will serve Yahweh on this mountain. But Moses said to Yahweh, Look, if I go to the Israelites and I say to them, The Yahweh of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they say to you, What is his name? Then what shall I say to them? And Yahweh said to Moses, I am that I am. And he said, So you must say to the Israelites, I am sent you to me. And Yahweh said again to Moses, So you must say to the Israelites, Yahweh, the Yahweh of your ancestors, the Yahweh of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the Yahweh of Jacob, has sent you to me, or sent me to you. This is my name forever, and is my name remembrance from generation to generation. That's the first thing they forgot, was the name. Go and gather the elders of Israel and say to them, Yahweh, the Yahweh of your ancestors, appeared to me, the Yahweh of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I have carefully attended to you and what has been done to you in Egypt. And now Moses was ready for his mission. He wasn't before. Now he's ready. With Yahweh, timing is everything. Yahweh is not greatly concerned with time the way that man is determined to and concerned with time. His thing is concerned with the timing of an event. I have never found in the Bible anywhere anyone was told, rush this and do that and hurry with it. Out here, they do it all the time. And that's where we are, and he is where he is. Elohim, being eternal, has no caring about time like that. The events that we covered today, he did today, would not have become the travesties that were if the people involved were more trusting about Yahweh and not about, I want it now. By being consumed with our carnal and temporal nature above our obedience and trust in Elohim. For instance, most of the world believes that our days begin and end at midnight because they have been told this for all their days. And we had no reason to question it because most people don't read the Bible much, and they do believe it only the things that they want to believe. The other stuff, they don't. But they should. Under the circumstances extant, timing is everything. Any questions? Any questions? Any comments? That's all I've got. Bless you all. Anybody there? No, it's over.